Hello, hello, hello. It's Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator, coming to you one more time. Hope everybody is doing well. Just so glad to see you. If this is your first time meeting me, let me just give you a little bit of background on my who I am. I'm in Chicago. I'm a retired Chicago public school teacher. I taught in Chicago for over 30 years, and upon retirement in 2012. I didn't want to leave the field to the point where I could not continue to help. Because during the time when I was teaching, I was a mentor. I had student teachers in place. I did workshops and so on and so forth. So I don't want to let all of that good stuff go to waste. So I've been coming to you for a while now, letting you know that I'm still available. If you want to talk to me or drop me a note at aureliadavis.com, feel free to do that. Like I said, I have over 30 years experience. I taught elementary school and learned a lot. Yes, I did. I learned a whole lot. And I want to share some of those things with you. I do understand now that teachers are really struggling. The field has emptied tremendously, and it has emptied to the point where they are pushing to get educators back into the buildings and encouraging people to go into education. And so hopefully these lives I'm doing will help you sustain the career of being an educator. It's not the first time things fell apart within educational districts and things like that. We have always had issues, from the top that trickles all the way down to the bottom that ends up hurting us as the educators, as those individuals within the classrooms. And so these little tidbits I give you, or these little, lives I give you, I'm just hoping I can encourage somebody to stay in the field, because our children do need you. Our children really, really do need you. Well, during this time, some schools or some states have gone back into the classroom, and that's a good thing. I hope they're being successful in spite of a lot of things that have happened, especially with the pandemic. So this is like basically the first time there may be a smooth transition back into the buildings or back into the classrooms without the fear of COVID, because we sort of have reduced that monster. We sort of have put that monster in a cage, and we know how to handle it. Being with mask, or being, wearing mask, or sanitizing our hands, or taking COVID tests just to see and make sure that everyone stays healthy, from that little kindergartner all the way up to that high school principal or that high school 12th grade teacher. We want to make sure that everybody stays safe and healthy. So when I think back on my career, I think about how about around this time of the year, I would start getting anxiety. Okay. Oh my goodness. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I taught third grade for a long time, taught third grade for the majority of the years I was in school. And then before I ended up leaving, I ended up teaching second grade. But what I found out more than anything else, no matter what grade you are teaching, there are some steps that need to be in place before you meet those students on that first day. And I have jotted down a few things that I think are very important. It might look different in your building, but at the same time, if something that you hear sort of taps your mind and say, yeah, I better check on that, or I better check on this, that would make the transition a little bit better. So when you meet those students on that first day, you have a little bit more control of what's going to be happening that first day of the class. And in the past, well, I remember when I first started teaching, there was basically just one day before the children came back. Chicago opened up to the students the day after Labor Day. And so and then sometimes we as educators, we were not allowed in the building until the children were in the building. Well, that has changed, which is a great thing. That has changed tremendously. Now, teachers have access. The buildings are being open all year round. So the teachers have access to go into the building, to go into their classrooms, to change things, to decorate, to just to wipe the dust off the table. Okay, they have the opportunity to do all of these things, to sit down in some quiet time and just prepare the year for what's coming ahead. So a lot of buildings throughout the whole United States are opening up a whole lot earlier. And what's even have been that has been in place even for the, like say, the last 10 years is that teachers are going in for professional development workshops to get their classes ready at least maybe a week before the students can come in. Before the students come in, principals have found that it is very important to prepare their staff, to educate their staff, to offer professional development. I remember at my school, we had quite a few retreats. We call them retreat days because we would find ourselves doing a team building team building activity in the gym by throwing balls at each other. Okay. And it was fun. It loosened us up. It got us back in the realm. The camaraderie was brilliant. We know we had to work together in order to be the educational institute that we wanted to be, in order for our whole school to be successful. It was not individual success from grade to grade and teacher to teacher, but it was a whole school success that we wanted to reach by the end of the school year. So some of those times were very good, but I did sort of cooperate. What I did take on myself, and as far as me evaluating what was going to be happening, was a few things that I'm going to probably go into a little bit of detail. But at the same time, if you want me to go back, I can always go back. Just leave me a note or a comment at the bottom of this page. So what I'm finding out now, and this hasn't always happened, that you can receive and get an electronic list of the students that are going to be in your classroom ahead of time. And some teachers have even received that class list even before the school year has ended, before spring, during the springtime. And if you are able to get that class list before spring, during the end of the school year in June, as to what you're going to have or who you're going to have in September, that's even better. Because what it does is that looking at that class list, it allows you to look at those students. If your building is small enough, a lot of times those students, which is good, and then sometimes you can even make collaborations with the parents, or you can collaborate with other teachers as to what the child was doing, because the individual learning is going to take place. Each child learns differently. Each child has to be taught separately, even if it's in a group. You have to address each child's educational needs. It is not going to go away. It's in place. So if you are able to receive your class list in June, take the time, go over those children, look at their ages, because sometimes age in a particular classroom makes a difference also. You have third graders, and we see, or even if they go to second grade. Second graders basically 7-year-olds. But you may have some that are some late 7-year-olds. You may have some that are going to be 8 before they come out of second grade. So all of those things are very important. You want to look at that class list. Hopefully on that particular class list, there will be some indication as to whether the child is receiving special program, or is the child is in special programs, special ed, or extra resources, bilingual. All of those things are things that you need to know before you meet those students on the first day. It is very important that you look at that class list. You also want to be able to look at that class list and see how many girls you have, how many boys you have. There's been so many years where I was girl heavy and boy light. And then there was boy heavy and girl light. And I had to sort of change my way of teaching when those individuals came into my class, because I knew most of the time the boys at that particular age, at age 8, they were going to be a little bit more active. So I needed to provide a little bit fewer, more active activities for them as students in my room. We would do different things. And even though I grew up with a bunch of girls, I learned what boys do real quick, fast, and in a hurry. So to just know if your class load is heavy with girls or heavy with boys is something that you really have to make way for. You have to plan for that type of thing. Then the second thing I wanted to talk about that also goes along with your class list, hopefully by this time or even sometime during the summer, ask your administrators if the building is going to be open. They may not be open every day, but there might be some times where you can go in ahead of time, like in the morning, and exit out at 12 o'clock and go into your building and visit your classroom. Most of the time, what we did do in the past, we broke our classrooms down. So because we broke our classrooms down in June, now we got to build our classrooms up for September. That means setting up, doing bulletin boards. And I have been on Facebook, and oh my goodness, The magnificent bulletin boards and the decorations in these classrooms. Teachers, you are awesome. Congratulations. And hands up to you. Whoa, whoa, whoa. They are beautiful. The ideas you have, the themes you have is just fantastic. And for you to be in a building where they allow you to do that, you need to cherish that. You need to cherish that. So going into your classroom, I'm going to be honest. There was not too much long of a time before I came out of a classroom that did have desks anchored to the floor. Desks anchored to the floor, 5 rows or 6 rows, and so many desks per whatever. Well, eventually that was abolished, which was good. And what ended up happening is we ended up with the individual movable desk, or we ended up with tables. Well, my classroom student in my classroom and in my school, of course, we were coming through that time and back in the 80s and coming into the late 80s and early 90s, our children had individual desks. Our children had individual desks. And so what I would do first is I would pair the children up side by side. I would have 3 rows and then three sets of twos. Okay, section 1, section 2, section 3. And then after a while, I wanted to do the children to do more collaborative activities. So then what I started doing is taking those same desks and breaking them into groups. And I would put the children, it would be like 3 on this side and then 3 children facing that particular 3 children. And I would have those scattered throughout. What it did allow me to do is to move easily around my room. And it allowed a lot more collaboration with the students themselves because I wanted them to work together. I wanted them to be able to work together with different areas of in the languages, language arts and reading and math and social studies and science. I wanted them to be able to work together. So from a particular point in my career, I started doing groups of desks together, and I kept it that way until I retired. And I found that this was the best way for children to learn. They really learn from each other more than they learn from us. But there may be that one child in that group that has heard what you want them to do. He is usually the spokesperson for the group, and he can get everybody else to do whatever. But I found out with my children and students working in groups, they had a tendency of pulling together to make the right decisions, to make collective choices on things and whatever. And it pushed down on my behavior problems. It pushed down on my behavior problems. Being second and third graders, of course, they were out of their seats on a regular basis. But if they were basically sitting with whoever they wanted to sit with, and I put those chairs and tables together, then that gave them the socialization that they needed throughout the day, which was very, very good. So my classroom arrangement was the next thing. And then what I did is I would take that same class list and look at it again. And the number of boys I had and the number of girls I had, I wanted a balance. So if I had, like, say, for instance, I had 4 table groups and I had 12 boys or whatever like that, that's how many boys at each particular group, and then I would spread the girls out. And the thing about it, this is called a temporary classroom arrangement. I called it a temporary classroom arrangement. Why did you call it a temporary classroom arrangement, Aurelia Davis? I called it a temporary classroom arrangement because the children were not there. So for me to have everything, positioned as I wanted it to be positioned, I would, it would be temporary because I didn't know the children. And it was so funny because those same children that probably most of them I did know. And what would happen is that they would come back to school 3 sizes larger. They left out as little bitty people and they came back as big people. So I had to make the adjustments with chairs and desks so that the children would be comfortable wherever they were sitting. So they would come in that first day and I said, okay, sit anywhere you want to. And of course, there's a scramble. Of course, you find out all the boys are sitting together and even pushing their desks up so they can sit with their friends. Then all the girls are sitting together. Well, this is temporary, so it doesn't make a difference for me at all. I just want them to get in the seat and settle down so we can start doing some things. And so The other thing about that class list, let's see if most of those students, usually on that class list, it will tell you about a classroom that the children came from. If I was getting third graders, most likely there was this was a second grade class list that was given to me for as third graders. And usually there was a line showing what classroom that the children came from. And it was interesting how we would sort, the teachers, we would sort the students. We say one, two, one, two, one, two. All of the ones will go to one room, all of the twos will go to another room. And we separate the boys and the girls so there was always a balance. It worked out every time. It worked out every time. And but I would also look on that list to see exactly what children may have transferred out of the building and what new students I might have in my building or have in my classroom. Because those particular new students, I needed to find out as much as possible, as quick as possible. So if there was a phone number attached, I would usually try to find the time to call that parent and introduce myself as that child's classroom teacher for the year and just get a little bit of information as to what about the child himself. How did he do it in his last school? Is he an avid reader? What's his favorite subject in school? So on and so forth. And then you get into, does he have any allergies? Because the allergies started flooding my desk close to my year of retirement. Peanut allergies, this allergy, milk allergy. Well, I want to know so I don't give it to the child. So I would also go through my list and find out those individuals, those students that are brand new to our school, brand new to our school. And that would be very helpful because I would make myself a committee of one as to finding out more about that child, which was very important. And then, of course, if I was doing a phone call, or nowadays you would do a Zoom call, see if you can meet the child and just do a facial visit and just recognize the child, just greet the child. Hi, I'm Mrs. Davis. I'm going to be your teacher. It's so good to meet you. And that sort of does put a child at ease for the first day. It also puts the parent at ease for the first day. You are that friendly face, no matter whether you feel it or not, that's going to be with that child from September to June, close to 6 hours a day. And so you have to put on the straight face as to being there for that particular child because they're going to depend on you mightily, mightily. Okay, so I've taken care of two things. We're talking about review your class list. The second thing, give your classroom a temporary arrangement. You can always schedule, another thing in that classroom, put your if you know what your schedule is going to be, when you're going to have gym, when you're going to have art, library, and those things, put that on the board because that's a good copying project that the children can do. And from them copying that information from the board, you'll find out those individuals, especially if you got elementary and younger children, you'll find out the ones that have that fine motor skills need tightening up or so on and so forth, who can make their letters, who cannot. Of course, if they're older children, hopefully all that is in place, but sometimes you need to look theirs over too. To have a sixth grader and they write something on a piece of paper in cursive writing, you can't read it. That's not going to work. So have that schedule on the board. Have the schedule on the board, and the jobs that the children are going to be doing in the classroom, that can always come later because you want to definitely try to find out who your leaders are and who your followers are in your classroom. Your leaders and your followers. Okay, but put your class schedule on the board if it's available to you. Okay. The third tip, hopefully throughout before the first day of school, you and your building has had a few meetings, okay? It can be professional development. It can be just some information coming down from the district, so on and so forth. But most of those meetings are going to give you information about what's happening in your building. I remember, and my principals were very good at doing that type of thing. I remember one time when it was mandated for all schools to have elevators and ramps for children that were in wheelchairs or had disabilities. Our principal let us know in the beginning of the year that it was going to be a lot of construction going on. They were going to be building and putting in an elevator. And the interesting thing is that elevator was going to go from the first floor, of course, all the way to the third floor. But What also made it interesting is that most likely one classroom teacher, which they did not do, was going to be displaced for a while. So, of course, that's something that you want to do before you even start fixing up your classroom. If you're going to be displaced and have to meet in the auditorium or meet in the hall, you want to know that. We were able in our building not to necessarily upset any of the classrooms. I think we had like an extra computer lab or something, an extra room. So that's where they put our elevator. And so, but at the same time, we needed to know that information because during the day there was drilling and all kinds of noise going on and whatever. And we had to learn how to work around that noise or those distractions in order for the children to continue to learn. So you also want to know about anything that's maybe happening within the building. You want to know about is there any new protocols on collecting lunch money, collecting fees, doing attendance. I remember when we first got back to school and more veteran teachers in my building than anything else, and we had to learn how to put our attendance in on our laptops. Oh my God. We put up a fit, but it was not going to go away. It was not going to go away. And so our principal, we at our meeting, we were told this is what we we're going to have to do from this point on. And the frustration of us being veteran teachers who had never picked up a laptop or looked at a computer, we wanted to know how were we going to do it. So our administrators decided to take us on individually or as groups and whatever and teach us how to do it. And of course, eventually we did get it going. We can't say we never liked it, but we did get it going, So that's how is attendance being taken, and even to the point of being taking attendance, what time it has to be in order for it to be counted. All of those are very important things that comes down from the district down to your principal, and your principal puts it on you. But it's still very important to your school. So what kind of protocol, during that time, you also meet any new teachers, and so on and so forth, and you welcome them. But you go around and introduce yourself. I introduced myself to every new teacher because I wanted special favors. They learned me quick, fast, and in a hurry. And of course, I didn't get all the special favors, but I showed myself friendly to let them know that you're in a building and I'm here to support you. So the protocols and just getting family back together was what we did in the beginning of the school year before our children came in. We would sit in each other's classrooms, ask about our vacations and things like that. That's something that needs to be reestablished as a staff members and staff and so forth. Okay, and so the last thing we want to talk about is emergency supplies. Okay, so you've gotten your classroom, your temporary arrangement together. You found out about all the protocols, what time lunch lists have to be in, and you looked at your class list and studied it and called some of your students and so on and so forth. But at the same time, if you have younger children, you want something for them to do while you're basically putting out those fires at your desk. I just said it like it is. You want something for those young people to do while you're putting out fires at your desk. So I'm going to be honest. When I was in the building, I had worksheets, coloring worksheets, any kind of worksheets. And it's so interesting because there's so many coloring books out here for teachers and adults. There's more coloring books for adults than there are for children. But even if you can run off some of those things and whatever, crossword puzzles, anything that would keep a child busy while you are doing some other things at your desk, but your desk should be set up. Those few days when you were making your classroom arrangement, you should have been putting your desk together too, as to where you can find things, putting things in the drawers and whatever, having those Band-Aids, having those paper clips, having push pins, safety pins, markers, all kinds of things that was in my desk. Okay. And so, to have some worksheets around is nothing, because you're not going to be able to teach on the first day. It's not going to happen. You cannot teach on the first day. First of all, the children are too wired to learn anything. So if you're there, you give them something and they've come to the classroom and they've turned in all of their supplies, which is about bulks of stuff, toilet paper and paper towels, and you got the crayons and the markers and all of those types of things. That's going to take at least about an hour to 2 hours. Okay. And so you want to get, once those things have been collected, then you start looking at your classroom and seeing who's in your building, who's in your room, you know. Take the time, give them, put some, and if you have your groups, if you have your say for instance, your tables are set up, have that one little basket in the middle where there may be a coloring sheet, there may be a puzzle, a small puzzle, there may be something that the children can do with their hands, silly putty, all kinds of things. I mean, anything that's in that middle desk, you know, and just let them know those things are for you guys to play with and work with, so on and so forth, until I finish doing what I'm doing. But at the same time, you're counting attendance and so on and so forth. So don't even worry about teaching that first day. Those first few days is getting to know your students, trying to find out the learners, that the type of learners you have in front of you. Are they auditory? Are they verbal? Are they visual learners? You know, do they like to see something happen? You may have to switch gears right in the middle of everything, you know. And like I've said, always said, be a teacher that thinks on your feet. Be ready to switch gears. Be ready to switch gears. Always have something in your mind that no matter how silly it sounds, no matter how silly it sounds, you can do it. Okay. Because my children have, for the things I have made up in my classroom just out the blue and whatever, my children have enjoyed it. And it's so interesting because about 3 or 4 years ago, one of my students who is now a teacher, she said, I do the same thing. So apparently it worked, you know, but you're basically their hero. And they want to impress you, you know. So if you get up there and do some funny finger plays or start a song or, you know, start whatever, all of those things are going to work because they are your children and they're going to love you. They're going to really love you. But have some activities on the desk in those tables for the children to be able to work with while you're putting out fires, you know, because that first day you may have said you got everything together up until that first day. And then on the first day, some other things come from the top and trickle on down and ends up in your lap. Okay. So have some activities for the children to do, or either allow them to talk quietly. Also put some library books on those tables. Try to find out what kind of readers you have in front of you. Do they like pictures, or are they into Harry Potter and all of those types of things? So have a box full of activities in each table. If you have 4 groups of tables, have a box of activities at each table so those children can just reach in. And you'll be surprised how that particular box that you put in the middle of the table is something that your children don't want to get rid of. And so you, as an educator, you can put different things in there. And a lot of times you're putting things in there that they have to learn from. Okay. I have one word. How many small words can you make up as one word? Worksheets, activity sheets, coloring sheets, puzzles, you know, things they can manipulate, you know, beading. I'm doing all of that, you know, because the whole child has to learn. Large motor, small motor, you know, listening. You know, I definitely keep, like I've always said, I keep my tape recorder in my room and I put on the music. I put on the music the first day and the children are looking around, where that's coming from. And I tell them, I said, this is our calming music. This keeps us from going crazy. And they love it. So this is Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator, coming to you. I hope you have enjoyed this little live I gave you today. I love to know your thoughts. What are some of the things? Share some of the things that you do on that in order to prepare for your students on that first day. Leave comments below, or you can go to my website, aureliadavis.com, and drop me a note. I would love to hear from you and get back to you. But this is it. And good luck, teachers, and I'm wishing you the best. Teach.